Most commonly asked soil testing question of me anyway is, well, do I really need to test for micros too on my soil test?
Commonly asked question? No, I've never heard anybody
I get that
ask
all the time from people around the country. Do I really need to do it? You talk about doing a complete soil test, but is it really that big a deal? I can't believe it.
Okay, so once again, I disagree with Darren. I'm going to tell you right now why Darren is wrong. Back just a few years ago, we did a major study. We involved 650 different farmers in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska, and we actually went to their farms, took plant tissue tests, sent them in, had them analyzed, and what we found is this. 98%, over 98% of the samples that went in, they were low to deficient in one or more micronutrients. That's a big deal. People aren't paying attention to the micronutrients. They don't know what to do. Most people aren't fertilizing at all with micronutrients. It's a huge issue. That's why we're talking about it today.
Well, it definitely is a big issue. And micronutrients, when you think about it, you hear the word micro and you say, well, that means small. So maybe they're just not very important at all. If I just get my NP and K right, I'll be pretty good. Well, they are very important. Micronutrients are essential to plant growth. They're the catalyst that make things work. Yes, you need the big building blocks, the N, P, and K, but you also need those catalysts, the electrical system of the plant, if you will, that just keeps all those processes working. If you're short of one of those micros, like in corn, for example, if you're short on zinc, you end up with some problems out there. In soybeans, there's different micros that are important. Every crop has got one or two micros that are really, really big deals in those crops. In many cases, they're different. So it's important to test for the micronutrients as a whole when you're doing your soil tests to find out what you need. But then when you're doing plant tissue analysis in the summer, take a look at that too to make sure those micros are getting into your plants.
Well, here's the reason why I think it gets to be such an issue on most farms. Nobody talks about it at all. Everybody talks about NPK, NPK,
because
NPK.
It's inexpensive. And you think about it from a fertilizer dealer standpoint.
NPK is super expensive.
No, it is. But if you're a fertilizer dealer and you say, wait a minute now, guys are going to spend $100 or maybe $200 on NP and K, but they're going to spend $5 or maybe $10 on micros, which one are you going to spend all your time talking about? You're going to say, you know what? Get the big one right. And okay, well, if you have any money left at the end, well, here's $5 or $10 micros.
Here's the whole problem is on every farm, in every field, there is a yield limiting factor. Well, if you've done a great job on NP and K, your yield limiting factor could have been that $5 you didn't spend on the micronutrients.
Could have been.
So that's
almost always is. That's what we found.
I don't know if I'd say almost always, but in a lot of cases out there, it's so inexpensive to fix. It's so easy, and in most situations, you only need a half a pound, a quarter pound, a tenth of a pound. But really, that's where some of the problems show up.
And that's why guys say, you know, I'm not going to put it in because I only need a tenth of a pound. And wow, what happens is they say, well, maybe I need a half a pound of zinc for this crop. So you get a guy like Brian that says, well, if I need a half a pound, let's just put in 5 pounds and then I'm good for 10 years and I don't have to worry about it.
You know, no big deal. But the problem with doing that is, sure, now you fixed your zinc problem, but then you caused a problem with something else, one of the other micronutrients, because they all need to be in balance. And that's the most important thing we want you to get out of today is all your nutrients in the soil need to be in balance. If you overdo it on one thing, you cause a problem with something else. Overdo it on another thing, cause a problem with one of the micronutrients. I mean, who knows? The point is you've got to make sure you're focused on that overall balance. So let's talk through some of the issues we've had with fertilizing with micronutrients on our own farm.
Well, depending on whether we're trying to do dry fertilizer or liquid, there can be some different problems. For one, let's take liquid. One year we had this brilliant idea. I'm not exactly sure which brother that's not me came up with that idea, but they thought, why not throw in some micronutrients right in with our liquid 28%? Well, you know, we just need a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Let's just throw those in. We throw it in with our 28%, it settles out.
Okay, so you can get micronutrients that settle out in liquid. You can also get the same thing with dry. We've had it before. Several different farmers we've dealt with over the years said, oh, I need lots of boron for alfalfa. Well, alfalfa needs boron, it just only needs a little bit. The problem is they threw the dry boron in with the rest of their dry fertilizer that they had, and now they've got a big issue because by the time they reach the field, all that boron had settled down to the bottom.
And in that case, you end up killing that first 100 feet into the field as all the boron spreads out. And it's not dead just for this year, it's dead for a few years.
So anyway, you can have problems with micronutrients if you do that. That's the reason why on our farm we've gone to blended micronutrient products. We've been using TJ Micromix, for example. There's Micro 500. There are other blends of micronutrients. The main thing is we really encourage you to look at those blends and get the right blend for a particular crop. In other words, corn needs a little different ratio of micronutrients than soybeans do. And we'll put this in right with our starter, only using 1 to 2 quarts per acre at planting time. It's a good way to do it. Make sure the micros are getting in there and that they're at the right ratio.
So don't forget about micros this year when you're doing your soil testing so you can get things just right for next year's crop.
Another important thing if you want to have a good crop next year or even this year is having great weed control. We'll tell you how to identify and control our Weed of the Week coming up later in the show.